Welcome to This Is Our Earth podcast. I am Sylvia Puentes, and I invite you to these amazing conversations that explore the wonder and magic of connecting with our beautiful planet. Inspired by El Lugar, the place, originally a book by Gary Douglas, and now being actualized on our Earth as we speak. What can we each be that would create a sustainable living Earth? Hello and welcome everyone to This Is Our Earth podcast. I am delighted. I think I have the best, not a job, but thing that I get to do. And I get to interview and bring to you different amazing people from around the world that are choosing and being something different on the planet to create something greater. And today I have the joy to introduce you to Simone Milasas. Is it Milasas or?
Yep. No, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. I hear it said in so many different ways, but so I actually have the pleasure to know Simone personally. She is one of the worldwide certified facilitators for Access Consciousness. She is also the worldwide business, is it coordinator for Access Consciousness or
Yeah, let's say
CEO?
coordinator, worldwide business coordinator. Just get in there and get my hands dirty and see what we can change to create more around the world.
And one of the gifts of Simone is that there is this joy and this exuberance of creating and business and many other things that inspires many people. But I've invited you to Simone to really this conversation about what is it that you know that we either are being, can be to create a greater planet and what it's been like for you in your journey of acknowledging what you choose and your relationship with the planet.
Well, interesting question. And I'd like to, like many years ago, before Access Consciousness, and I've been working with Access for about 20 years, I actually started a business of my own called Good Vibes for You. And you sort of just reminded me, the reason why I started this business was there was two things. One, I looked around and I was like, this is crazy. People are just choosing this trauma and drama and this fight and this, and I was like, there's got to be something else. Like, what if people could be more vulnerable with each other? What if when they met each other, it was sort of like this hi, rather than this energy of, putting walls and barriers up. And the other piece that I always noticed, no matter where I was, like even now I'm doing this podcast with you and I know it's audio, but that beautiful plant that you have in the background, it's like my whole life I've always noticed, that the energy that the plants, the trees, the earth, etc. I was lucky enough, I grew up in Sydney, Australia, but I grew up, Sydney's huge. It's like as big as LA, like the way it's sprawled out. And I grew up on the edge of Sydney, and it was right on Port Hacking River. So my childhood, I grew up. Can you hear that noise?
I do. There's a little buzzing going on, so I'm going to close my 20 million tabs and see if that helps. Sorry, everyone. We try to bring some clear.
Do you want to mute yourself while I'm talking and see if it changes?
Yeah, let's do if we. Yeah, perfect.
Excellent. But see, that's what life brings you, little surprises. And it's like, how are you going to deal with those little surprises? So while Sylvia's shutting down her 20 million, I think she might be exaggerating slightly, her 20 million program she has open, she's muting herself while I talk, and I can talk a lot, so that's okay. So, but I grew up in Sydney and Port Hacking River, and I spent like my afternoons when you came home from school, we'd go water skiing, we'd go, down to the river, and we'd go fishing, or we'd just go hang out in the water. And I've always loved the water. And I lived about 10 minutes drive from the beach as well. And everywhere I lived, I ended up being right near the beach. Like where I am right now, I can hear the ocean. I'm pretty sure you can't on the podcast. But my house is across the road from the beach, and I can hear the ocean, and I love it. I mean, one of our PR agent that we work with, Justine McKell, I remember the first time she came to my house and she went, oh my God, she goes, I've paid for CDs that sound like this to make my kids go to sleep, and you have it just walking around your house. And I'm like, yep, I do. I love it. But I've always engaged with the earth, even when I wasn't willing to acknowledge it. And so one of the reasons why I created this business, Good Vibes for You, again, the vulnerability with people. And I was like, what can I be? What can I create that would get people to start to look at the earth and look at the plants? And when you walk into a room, it's like, you say hello to the person. Why don't you say hello to the plant? Like I wake up, I wake up in the morning and I literally say hello to my plants. And I mean, yesterday I had my gardener who is amazing. I had this gardener who would come in and just mow the lawn and leave. And I was like, this doesn't feel like much fun with my garden. And I said to my assistant, we need to find a gardener who's actually a contribution and works with the garden. And we found this guy and he's amazing. And the first time he came, I texted him and I was like, oh, my garden looks amazing. Thank you so much. And he goes, Simone, working in your garden was amazing. He goes, it felt like this fairyland or something. And I remember he texted me one day and he said, this might sound really weird to you. He said, but I have to say something. And I was like, sure. And he said, I've been talking to the consciousness of your plants. And I was like, oh, Will, I'm so your client. He's like, I've been talking to the consciousness of your plants and this is what they're asking for. And he was like, is that too weird? And I'm like, not at all. I talk to them all the time. So now when we see each other, because he comes once a week, yesterday you said something and he started sort of trying to explain himself. And I went, hey, Will, I think we've established that we're sort of on the same page here. And he came into my house so I could show him something like that. You could see these trees from the kitchen window. And as I walk past my plants, I'm like, hey, check these guys out. Because there's like new leaves on the plants. And we're both like, yay. And it's like that. And I have a lemon tree in my backyard and it wasn't growing. And everybody, because I'm so close to the beach, everyone had the point of view that there was too much sand and it wouldn't grow with the sand. And I realized from doing a podcast with Monica Gillum, who does a whole lot of, talking to plants. I realized on the podcast with her that everybody had that point of view and I was buying into the point of view. And we went, and we changed it. And I spoke to my gardener, Will, as well. And I spoke to him about it and we changed our point of view. I'm not kidding. Within 4 days, my lemon tree started to sprout these leaves. And now it doesn't have fruit on it yet, but it's got all, like Will and I were looking at it yesterday going, look at you, buddy. Look at you go with all these new leaves. And that, to me, that energy that we can be with the earth, we can be with plants, we can be with the rivers, the oceans, the desert, all of it is something far greater than what you've ever been willing to acknowledge that you can receive. So when I came across Access Consciousness, I was like, whoa, this is about being in communion with everything, including the earth.
And I love that you're saying that. There might still be a slight buzzing on from my laptop, so I apologize for that. But it's interesting. You talked about, you wake up and you talk to your plants, like this plant that you see here that many of you can't see, but it's in a direction that I can see straight as I wake up. And it was this morning, it was like, oh, hi. Like it was really loud and cheerful and happy to be here. But I also acknowledge that wasn't always there for me. Like there was the busyness of the everyday of, work, home, cleaning, all of that, is your sense that we have this ability to speak, receive, and yet no one's really talked about it. So you never acknowledge it, or what invitation could be?
I do. And here's the thing too that I noticed, and I had a chat to Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness recently, because since COVID, and I've been home, it's like I have a lot of indoor plants. And can I tell you, actually, I haven't told anyone this, but this is funny. Well, who introduced me was a Tinder date. It's like I went to his house and he had all of these indoor plants and it was amazing. And I was like, whoa. And I was so intrigued and I was like walking around and touching them all and that. And I get that he got that I was actually receiving all of his plants. So when I left, he took this empty wine bottle and took a cutting off of one of his plants and put it in the empty wine bottle. And he said, okay, when you get home, you need to put this. And he told me what to do with it. And I went, okay. I got home and I just had this one plant sitting on my kitchen bench. And I usually used to buy flowers when I came home because I love having the flowers in there. But having this one plant, and then I was like, I could actually have more plants. So I sent him a video not long ago and he was like, whoa, you really have gone crazy with indoor plants. And I was like, it's your fault. So now I have all of these plants and it's amazing the engagement that you can have with them and how you can talk to them. And one of the things that I said to Gary was, I said, my plants are so demanding. And he said, no, they're not demanding. They just don't stop. And I realized how much because, one of the descriptions that someone could use of me is demanding. And I was like, oh, what if it's not demanding? What if it is that I just don't stop? Because the plants don't go, oh, hang on a second. It's you're busy. I won't bother you. They're like, I'm thirsty. but they're also patient. They're all of it and more, but they don't stop. And if you listen to them, and what you hear is phenomenal. And it's your own adventure with you and your plants.
And I've also like those moments when I've walked by the plant and all of a sudden I touch it, but there's an awareness of it. I was at a friend's house and I was like, she was all, what is it? And I'm like, oh, it needs water and it might like to be in a different spot. And I caught myself saying that, but it's not a thinking. It was just like, if you would allow yourself, that to be strange almost, which might
Mhm.
not be as strange as we think it is, and it's just really fun to go, wow, I actually knew that. And she told me weeks later, Sylvia, I moved it and it's so much happier. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, wow. So that gift of beginning to play with and to notice either in your home or outside your home, like what are you listening to or what can you hear that you haven't acknowledged? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a funny story about that as well. You don't need to mute yourself. You don't have a buzz going on
Oh,
anymore.
good.
So yeah. Um, uh, there's because I had the point of view, I don't know much about plants, right?
Right.
So how many of you have the point of view that you don't know much about plants? And when I got all these plants, it was like, oh my God, I've just hired this, like, I've got all these kids and I don't know what to do with them. Am I going to kill them? And so every time when someone came in, I noticed I was giving away my awareness and my knowing and my communion with my plants. And I was like, hey, what do you reckon this plant needs? And someone would go, like, look at the same plant, and they'd go, oh, you've watered it too much. And then someone else would walk in the same day and go, oh, it doesn't have enough water. And I went, oh, hang on a second. Everybody has a different point of view. So I literally sat in my house and I was like, okay, guys, here's the deal. You have to tell me what you need and when you want it and where you want to be. And I will listen to you and I'll stop listening to everybody else. And my plants are amazing. Like there's new leaves growing all the time. And some of them are like, I'm here, this is my spot. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm not moving you. And others, like I was sitting there yesterday looking at one on the veranda and I'm like, oh, you're so not happy there. And I don't know where you want to be. Do you actually want to be mine? Do you want to be owned by somebody else? And I heard bathroom. So I've got it in the bathroom at the moment and it's not looking that great, but I only moved it yesterday. So I'm like, well, let's see how this works for you. And then if not, tell me where else you want to be, or do you want to be owned by somebody else as well? So, and each plant requires something different all the time.
And I love that. I love that. I actually have a friend who's the director of North Coast Vineyards for a winery in California. And I remember when he shared, it's like, yeah, I talk to the vines. Like I say,
Yeah,
hey, the grapes, what do you need? Hey, you're looking beautiful and sexy. Like he'll talk to them, and the others he'll be like, hey, what's going on? You need to tell me what you need. And
yeah,
at first I thought he was really weird. And I'm all, no, that's so awesome. So for those of you that are listening that have gardens, that have maybe orchards or are growing anything, it's like, what would it be like to begin to ask to be notified of what and when they need? Because I'm like, we have a vibrant living planet,
yeah.
and it's like, that energy of embracing that you do hear something, you do know, like, what does that contribute to the whole entire planet? Like, I'm excited to see if we had millions more people truly acknowledging that gift of gifting and receiving, what would be different, with everything that we see.
Yeah, and we've mentioned this a couple of times now, Sylvia, the weird thing. Can I ask, if you're listening to this, what if it was weird that you didn't hear plants? Like, let's switch it up. I
Thank
mean,
you.
for
Yes.
God's sake, it's like, I mean, we all watched the movie Avatar and loved it. Well, that's the communion that we have with animals and with plants and with the earth.
Wow.
So what if
Thank
we started embracing that? I mean, you know, I mentioned I live across the road from the ocean, and I was talking to a friend of mine, Mark Kerr, who you know, the other day, and he grew up in Australia as well, and with the ocean, and we were talking about how the ocean is it's wild. And where we live, like I live across the road from probably one of the best local surf breaks. Not everyone knows about it. It's a great local surf break, and I love it those days where like there's just utes, like trucks everywhere. And I'm like, that's the day that you get a call from your tradesman going, oh, sorry, ma'am, that plumbing job is just taking a little bit longer than I thought, because they're across the street surfing. Like I know that, it's been this big joke. But we were talking, because I said to him, did you go swimming today? And he was like, oh man, it was really full on. And I said, yeah, those days where you get in and I'm only like just above my knees and the ocean's like, we're rough today. So you're like, okay, I'm just going to go for this little mini swim and get out, because you learn to be in communion with the ocean. It's like, you know, where's the rips? Where is this? It's like, talk to me. I mean, not very long ago, I went to dive into the ocean here and I just got this energy of shark. And I was like, okay, I mean, it's the ocean. There's sharks. I mean, I live in Australia, you know, and I was like, is there a shark out there? And I got yes. And I went, okay. So I'm just asking energetically. And then I went, can I still dive in the water? And I was like, shark. And sharks and snakes are two things that I've been absolutely petrified of my whole life, which is funny that I live in Australia. Since being home for this time, I asked to be more in communion with sharks and snakes. And that has definitely what's showing up. So you can ask that. If there's an animal or something like that that you have decided that you're petrified of, what if you ask to be more in communion with them? And so I dove into the water and was like, okay, don't be an idiot. Like, don't go swimming right out, and got wet and then came back out. And that afternoon, there was this big alert, like in the community of Bridgian Beach, that there's this huge shark out there to be aware, this whole thing. And I was like, oh, cool. I knew the energy of shark. Like, it was there. It was probably swimming right out front when I perceived it. But what if that was normal? Like, what if we heard the animals? And I also got the energy of the shark wasn't looking. I mean, most people think, oh, there's a shark, it's going to attack you and bite you. No, that you'd be horrified if you knew how many times you're out in the ocean and there's a shark so close to you and it's done absolutely nothing. It's
Yeah.
like that happens way more, yeah, than what people are willing to acknowledge. So, but one of the things I started doing too was I joined up different groups on Instagram that have all this footage of sharks, and I started perceiving sharks in a really different way. Like, there's a guy, Mick Fanning, he's an Australian surfer. I'm not sure if you've heard of him or know this story. He was in South Africa, which is one of the places that you get the most great whites, like, which is one of the biggest sharks you can get. He was surfing. He was in a surfing competition, and there's this footage. You can Google it on YouTube. Mick Fanning, you know, surfing great white, South Africa, and he's surfing, and you see this shark come up behind him, and it taps the back of his board. And he turns around, and look on his face. I mean, the guys were so quickly because they're so popular there. So they come around to pick him up, and he jumps onto this back of this jet ski thing, this bed that they've got, so quickly. And the look on his face was just like, holy shit, you know. And he talks about it and how he's still got this energy of PTSD with sharks, right? Now, my point of view with this is it's a great white. The energy that Mick Fanning, he's an amazing surfer, and the energy of him being in the ocean, what I was picking up on is, what if the great white was just sort of like nudging him and had this like playful energy? Like, it's interesting. If you look at, I saw this documentary about these great whites eating a whale, and there was like 8 of them. And you know what they did? They didn't do frenzy. One bit, next one bit, next one bit, next one bit. And they ate of this shark. It was like this really polite, elegant dinner party that they had. But most people have the point of view that there'd be this frenzy, but they weren't. They're so much smarter than what we've been willing to acknowledge. So, and Mick Fanning's actually, I don't know when it is, but he's putting this documentary out because he said, I knew I had to get over this PTSD and this what I had decided about sharks. So he's doing this shark documentary, and he said, I knew I had to invite one of these ladies who is a shark whisperer, let's say. And they went swimming with sharks, and there's this footage of him literally patting these sharks and kissing the sharks. And he's like, that is not what I thought I would be doing in this documentary. But the way she is with them, and you look at it and you're like, whoa, there's no fear in her world. She's not being an idiot, like, and assuming something, but she engages with them as a shark would engage with a shark. And it's like, so what if we, you know, like when you engage with a dog, but you look through a dog's perspective or a horse's perspective, rather than impose our point of view upon the earth and upon animals, what if we actually were willing to see the world through their eyes?
Wow.
And everything that is right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all names, shorts, boys and beyonds. And that's the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement, which you can find out more on theclearingstatement.com. I mean, I saw a snake not long ago too. I was walking down to the beach, and about half a meter away, this snake was there, and I nearly died. And I ran back, and then I went, whoa, hang on a second. And I stopped, got my phone out and took a video, of course. And the snake was just sort of like, he was all reared up, but it was like looking at me like, what are you doing? Should I be scared of you? And I was talking to Tim Bothams, who you should definitely do a show with, Tim and Tanya Bothams. And they're amazing. And he was saying to me, Simone, snakes are actually, most snakes are fairly timid. And we have one of the most dangerous snakes in the world, called the taipan, and it lives out in the desert in Australia. It lives underneath the ground, and it'll come out like early morning to bask in the sun or sunset. And it's one of the most timid, shy snakes in the world. And I was watching this show, and this guy was saying, you know what? If you're the deadliest snake in the world, you don't have to prove anything. So it's
Wow.
got this really sweet demeanor about it, which I thought was really cool. And it was like, but we so instantly have this judgment about, oh my God, there's a bear, it's going to attack me. There's a snake, it's going to bite me. No, it's not. What if we had a different point of view with the animals and with the earth, and we were willing to perceive, know, be, and receive the communion that truly is available?
And this is so beautiful. And thank you for catching that part of the weirdness that was mentioning. Because, yeah, what if it's not weird? And that actually allows us to have this sense of communion and listening and beginning to question all the stuff we've bought about any animal or the destruction of the planet. I mean, yes, are things changing? Yes. And, what are we aware of we could do different to actually contribute to it thriving more? And for many, many more years. So I'm grateful. Thank you. Because there's such a playful energy to what you're saying about these animals, snakes and reptiles, all these animals that most people would be like, what? But we stay so fixed in that point of view. There's no freedom to change it
Uh,
or
And we were brought up with that. Like there's I wish I could remember the name of it. There's a show on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was showing with all these different animals and these photographers. And I'm like, I was watching it going, God, we're so entrained to think that an animal is going to attack us, or to think that, like, I mean, you ride horses. It's
yeah.
like, it's like riding a horse. You're entrained to think that something's going to go wrong, rather than what if this was better than anything that you've ever chosen before. It's like the communion that you can have with a horse. The horse will listen to you. If you're riding a horse and you have this like, oh my God, something's going to happen. The horse is literally like, what's happening? What's happening? What have I missed? What have I missed? What have I missed? Because you're in panic. And it's like, that's what all animals do. That's how they like communicate. That's how they be with each other. So what if we started acknowledging that and being that? It's like such a different world. And to
Go
add
ahead.
to the earth thing too, I recently went to the middle of Australia, to Uluru, to Ayers Rock, and I did a base walk around there. And I'm actually going to do a 3-day body class at Ulara, which is right near Uluru. I'm very excited about it. And doing the base walk around that, and it takes a few hours, like 3 hours or something. It's 650 million years old on one end of it. And on the other end, it's 550 million years old, because it rose at different times. And when you walk around that, and anything that's like, it's sort of like, I dare you, come up with what you decide is a problem, whether it's your relationship or money or COVID or whatever. And you're like, and you keep looking at this huge rock that is they say it's about creation. And you keep looking at this and you go, 650 million years old, and I think I've got a problem. It's like, come on. What if it's time to change that?
I love that. Yeah, to acknowledge that something has been around so long and it continues to
Yeah.
grow, move, all of that. It's like, wow. Yeah, I look forward to that class that you are creating. And for those of you that don't know, it's an amazing 3 days of body work and exploration of receiving and gifting that changes the molecules of your body. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Simone, for facilitating that even during these times. So, what contribution can our bodies be? That's another question I had for you because I've heard you speak about, this change in the last year now of you've been home more often and what you actually started to acknowledge about your communion and relationship with the earth. Is there anything else you'd like to add about that?
Yeah. Look, I mean, March 2020, I was in Budapest, Hungary, and then, got the last flight out of there. And as soon as I got home, I had two classes that I had to do, like starting at midnight, in Australia time zone. So I was just like, body, don't change your clock. Like, let's just keep going with Europe time zone. And and I was in 14 days self-isolation. So I did these 2 weeks of classes, and then Queensland went into lockdown. So it was like 2 weeks self-isolation. Now I can't go anywhere. Okay. And I remember sitting on my couch and I was like, huh, what do I do now? I hadn't been home for 2 weeks in ages, like I was usually on tour for 6, 7 weeks, home for a week, if I'm lucky, and then on another tour, etc. So now I'm sitting on my couch going, okay. So then I've never ever been a person to be bored. Even when I was a kid, like my mother would say I was in my room for hours and hours on end, just entertaining myself. I was always able to do that. So, but what I did start to look at was, is there anything in my life I'd like to change, or what would I like to choose? What would I like everything to look like? And as you know, Sylvia, too, it was like, I guess at that time, it was probably about just over a year that I'd broken up relationship with, or Brandon broke up the relationship with me. We'd been together for 8 years. And I was sort of going, do I want another relationship? And I wasn't clear on anything. So me being me, I love an Excel spreadsheet. I literally wrote down all these topics: relationship, sex, because they're not the same, relationship, sex, business, money. And I also wrote down geographical location, because I was like, do I actually want to live in Australia, or do I want something different, or where do I want to be? And I started to look at all these things of what it is that I would like. And for example, so many people confuse relationships and sex and put them in the same category. It's not. It's like, so I was like, okay, well, I really like sex, so I'd like to have sex, and I'd like to, but do I want a relationship? And I realized there's aspects of relationship that I liked, but not like someone moving in and living here. I love living in my house on my own. It's wonderful. So starting to break this down, is there anything I want to change with the business? And it's like money. It's like looking at wealth. And as I looked at all of this, this became this overcoming awareness of the earth. And I've got this beautiful veranda with these beautiful native trees, and we had literally thousands and thousands and thousands of these big blue exotic butterflies that would come by. It was about 3 weeks. They were just everywhere, like to the point when you were driving and I'd be going like 30 k's an hour, because it was like, oh my God, I'm killing butterflies as I drive. Like you were like, fly up, fly up, fly up. Like they were just everywhere. And so we had all of these butterflies, the ocean that I was in every day, the native trees, which guess what, bring native birds. And it was all really present. So as I was writing down all these things, relationship, sex, business, money, where I want to live, the earth was so loud that I went, oh, it was sort of like, what if none of this meant anything and I have ultimate choice? And I heard the earth and I was like, oh, and I said, I'd like to be in communion with the earth. And I was talking to Gary about it, and he said to me, Simone, you've got to acknowledge you already are in communion with the earth. And I was like, good piece. Like, I love the way he picks you up on that. And I was like, okay, so if I'm already in communion with the earth, which I am, what would it take to increase that? And what can I contribute to the earth? And what can the earth contribute to me? And I kept asking this like every day and quite a few times. And there was this weird energy every time I was like, what can the earth like contribute to me? And I was like, what is that? And then I heard Dane talking and I was like, oh, it's that. And because he was asking pretty much the same questions, which I adore that man. It's like, I've known him, he's been my friend for over 20 years. And he was talking about how he heard the earth go, receive me. And I was like, that's the piece I've been missing, thinking that it's like, it has to look a certain way. And it was like, no, the earth is like, receive me. I was like, okay, start receiving more from the earth. And like I said, I'm very lucky with where I live at the moment, that I have a lot of earth around me and not many people. So the earth tends to be louder than the people, which I'm very grateful for. And what communion can you be with the earth that you've been refusing, that if you didn't refuse it, could change your entire reality? And everything at that is times a godzillion, we destroy and create it.
Yes.
Fighting on good and bad, pock and pot in shorts, boys and beyonds.
And that beautiful gift of being invited to receive, because, I grew up and it's all about giving, that the more you gave, to people, to whatever cause, and even to the planet, plant more trees. But it was always in this one direction that never did I consider the part about receiving, and that how much that was a gift and contributed more. That now, yeah, I acknowledge way more. And it doesn't mean I don't contribute. I was walking by a tree this today. I have a huge park in front of our place that I'm so grateful for, because I literally walk out and it's all these trees.
There.
Yes, and there was this one tree I was walking by, it was like, and it just, I kind of stopped and I just looked up, and I could tell it required something. I didn't know what, but I was like, here you go. Like whatever I can contribute and be to that, but not from any conclusion. And then I just kept walking and I thought to myself, what if we are capable of gifting way more? So as I walked through the city, I was wondering, like, what energy can I be right now as I look at buildings, streets, people, and that's the part of the magic that I have been calling weird, but is, I mean, I think weird is the new black, maybe, because it's like if we're not willing to be weird of what we thought was normal, then nothing's going to change. So
Yeah.
so I'm grateful for this conversation on the receiving. Beautiful.
Me too. And can I make a comment about your plant again? And I invite all of you, when you have a plant or anything like that, because as I've been talking to Sylvia, the light has changed. And when I first started talking to her, the sun or some light, something was all on the tops of the leaves. And now it's not. And it's now I can see the colors of the leaves in a really different way. And that's one of the things I've noticed with so many of my trees and my plants and stuff like that. They change every moment of the day, and it's like, and they show you a different beauty and show you something different all the time. And light is one of those ways that it's done. So, sit with the plant and just observe.
Yet
It's
it's
like,
interesting because
if you have a house or an apartment, get some rosemary, in a pot, a little pot, or some mint. Mint is really good and easy to have by the kitchen sink. It likes lots of water. You could literally put a pot of mint and it smells so good, and literally just almost have it sitting underneath the tap, because it just requires lots of water and the sunlight coming in from the window. And it's like, have that, like, invite something like that in your life.
And I love, as you were speaking about the changes in the plant and the light, I'm all, there's a lot of sexualness in that. It was like, oh my. I was like, this willingness to engage and receive. And I thought, oh, that was fun to listen to. Like, but that willingness and that energy of actually gifting and receiving has this sexualness where you're actually truly, it's this. Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing that showed up was like, for those of you that are living alone right now and maybe not getting out a whole lot, I mean, what can you engage with if you do have plants, in your home, or to add one? Like, we're really not alone. We keep
Nope.
thinking, no, there is so much to engage with, and plants are definitely, one
And I
that,
bet you can find a nursery that will even do delivery. So
yeah.
Wes, one of the guys I work with in South Africa, he sent me for Christmas this beautiful plant, and it was a delivery that I got, and it's just growing ginormously. It's just wonderful. It's so beautiful. Hey, have you had Monica Gillum on your show yet?
I have, yes.
Okay. So
And
I
she,
don't know if she spoke about this, but I learned on my podcast, she said that your plants will contribute, like when you're having sex, like copulating, your plants will contribute. And she said, even if they're not in your house. So I've been noticing that, and I'm like, oh, plants, guess what? We've got a date Saturday night, and like noticing the energy of the plants, like when you said that sectionless, and I was
oh,
like, oh,
yes.
it's
Okay.
like they will receive as you are receiving.
I'll get back to you, and I'll do my homework and let you know.
Good girl. That's what I love about you, Sylvia.
But really, like, where can we include the earth? I mean, wow. I mean, when it comes to copulation, when it comes to all these different energies, I'm actually really, I don't know if the word is excited, but it's like, as I perceive possibilities of what's available, it tickles me inside, makes me smile, because I know that we have the power and the gift to make this planet and this world so much greater than it is by this
Yeah.
energy that you're being, Simone. So I thank you so much. I create these podcasts and we begin them and we never really know where we're headed. And yet there's a lightness and a play in this that I know is an energy that generates and creates more of that on the planet. So thank you for being that. Thank you for inviting us to acknowledge the plants and what we can be with that. So anything else you'd
Thank
love
you.
to?
No, I would like to say thank you to you, Sylvia. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for being what you be here on the planet. And how does it get any better than this? Like, what else is possible?
Yes. Yes, and I'd like to say the earth has invited me to be more of me on this podcast, and what else can we choose to be more of us? So, and with that said too, I'd like to also mention you were talking about horse riding, and I recently was horse riding at El Lugar, this incredible property. We bring it up a couple times on the show, but this podcast has been inspired by El Lugar, um, this magical land in Costa Rica that has an energy and nurturance that for me personally, I'm grateful because it continues to invite me to acknowledge this communion that exists in a magical way. So I'd like to thank you for being such a big part of that. You're also, one that's sponsoring a documentary that's being made or coming together. So thank
Yes,
you for that.
you're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you.
And
I
thank all
can't
of
wait
our
to forget.
listeners. Yes. And thank you all for listening. And if you're listening to this and it's something that has made you smile, giving you possibilities for what we can be on the planet, share it. We've had many beautiful people on the show. And if you know of anyone that you'd like us to invite to come on to also hear what they're choosing and being on the planet that is creating the earth that we all know is possible, I'd be happy to interview them. So thank you so much, Simone. Enjoy the beautiful earth out in Australia. And I can't wait to hug you in person. So
Yes,
thank
me
you.
too. Thank you, Sylvia. Mwah.
Bye, everyone, and thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this show. My target is to inspire new actions and conversations that empower us all to know that we are the ones creating the future. If you'd like a way to contribute to our podcast, please leave a review wherever you listen. And for information about El Lugar, visit el-lugar.com. Thank you.